I've had many requests to get a bit more granular on what abilities, builds, jobs, etc. I would recommend for new and returning players for Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. So today, I figured we would start off a series of videos talking about just that by going over reaction abilities, as oftentimes they are extremely powerful, but also expensive and difficult to get to due to the jobs that they're in. You're going to have 6 good options to pick from here, and they all have their own merits. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including, of course, my ongoing coverage of Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. This is just one of many topics that I've seen lots of requests for. We'll be working through them all as quickly as I can. Thank you everyone who's been posting very regularly in the comments about what you would like to see. Hopefully very soon we'll be doing big coverage of the zodiac signs mechanic as one example of future content. For now though, we have to talk reaction abilities, and that's exactly what we're going to get into. There's 6 that we want to go over here that I would say are the best, most universally applicable and useful abilities, and I'll give examples of why that is for each of them. I'll do my best to sprinkle in some gameplay examples of them where I can, though the nature of reaction abilities means that they just kind of trigger really quickly, and that's that. It's more important to discuss what they do and why they are valuable than to necessarily show you them in action. For this demonstration, we have 6 of our finest from the army lined up here, starting off with Sasha. Sasha has the Mana Shield ability, and that is the first that we will be talking about. Note that Mana Shield does not come from Black Mage. It does come, in fact, from Time Mage, but she is a Black Mage currently, so what are you going to do? Mana Shield, or Mana Shield, depending on your flavor, is a very powerful ability that just says, when receiving damage, MP is reduced rather than HP. That's it. It's extremely effective. It activates when you lose 1 or more HP. Doesn't matter from what, doesn't matter why. You just take damage on your MP before you take it on your HP. Now, of course, you might be thinking to yourself right off the bat, you really want that on your mages, though? Because, like, kind of need their MP to cast. But there's a few different reasons why this is so very powerful. First of all, mana, very easy to replenish in a lot more ways than you would expect. Things like Mana Font, where you just gain mana whenever you move around. Things like Chakra from the Monk, that can just generate mana for anyone around them, including themselves. The ability to use ethers. There's other spells and abilities that allow you to gain mana on cast or when being targeted or all sorts of different fun things. It's not as hard to replenish as you might expect. And the beautiful thing about the way Mana Shield works is if you have even 1 point left, the whole attack will go into your mana. There won't be any overflow to your HP. So even just the tiniest amount of recovery is essentially a get out of jail free card for at least 1 attack. As far as what types of jobs you want to have it on, there's not necessarily anything wrong with having it on your mages. If you expect that they might take a big hit and maybe won't be able to cast a huge spell, then you can work around it before you replenish their MP. But really the best use case for anyone with Mana Shield is either a physical fighter that does not use their mana at all, or a mage that doesn't require mana. For example, samurais, geomancers, great examples of characters that don't use MP as a resource and can just spam their abilities to no end. On the flip side of things, knights, unless you have a weird spellblade thing going on, knights are never going to use their mana for anything. They're just going to walk up, hit things with a sword, try to rend stats, rend armor, and having an even bigger HP pool by applying it damage directly to their MP first makes them extremely potent. This is just a phenomenal defensive option. Being able to get even more mana from equipping certain types of gear makes it even more powerful. It just turns your mana bar into a second health bar, which is so valuable on so many characters, especially on Tactician where things hit so damn hard. If you don't have any other idea of what you might want to do with a character and you know that you're going to have ways to replenish MP fairly easily on your team, you can absolutely do worse than slapping Mana Shield on as many of your fighters as you can. Moving on from Mana Shield, we have another phenomenal defensive option demonstrated by Ramza here, Shirahadori. Shirahadori does in fact come from the Samurai job, and it is quite possibly the single most broken reaction ability in the game, so long as you're dealing with the circumstances that it's built for. Shirahadori says, when receiving a physical attack, the unit's parry rate is the same as its bravery rate. So basically what that means is if you're getting attacked by a physical attack and you have, for example, Ramza has 75 brave, you have a 75% chance to just avoid that attack, which then you can also get other bonuses like having shields to make that even higher before you are able to max out your brave stat. With even a moderately high bravery, Shirahadori will make you all but immune to a wide array of attacks. We're talking physical attacks with weapons, ranged attacks with weapons, various different physical abilities. There's a lot that Shirahadori can protect you from, and that makes it a wildly powerful ability. Now, of course, there are certain things that this will not be able to protect you from. Holy Sword abilities is one that just it can't do anything against. Magical attacks, especially things like other samurai that just have a guaranteed AoE hit, or summoners are really nasty. There's things that Shirahadori won't be able to protect you against, and that's why having other defensive options in conjunction with it is very strong. For example, why I have equipped shields with an Aegis shield here on Ramza, just has 50% magical parry rate. Cool. So now I've got very good magical parry and extremely strong physical parry. Very difficult to get through that unless you have some very specific abilities going on. But for anything that is at all likely to be getting hit by physical damage, and those are going to be the majority of the attacks that you run into over the course of the game, Shirahadori is a must-have if you expect to have high bravery. Moving on from Shirahadori to something that is less defensive and more long-term offensive, we have Speed Surge being demonstrated by Rhea here. Now, Speed Surge comes from the Archer job, one of two different reaction abilities that they have, and it's kind of a weird fit for this job because ideally if you're using your archers right, they're not getting hit in the first place, but what it does is upon receiving damage, it increases your speed for the duration of the battle, and this trigger percentage is also based off of your bravery. For anyone who knows the way that the action economy in Final Fantasy Tactics works, having more speed is an insanely powerful buff, and being able to put this on anything that might be getting targeted very frequently in melee, like a fairly tanky monk or other durable type of character, means that over the course of a fight, they will get progressively more and more ridiculously fast. If you're using a job that actually calculates speed into its damage formula, such as archers or in particular thieves and ninjas, this can mean a direct boost to damage as well, and if you're taking extra turns, that's a damage increase. It's a very potent ability. You just need to survive long enough to be able to regularly trigger all of these different speed gain options. If you can do that though, by the end of a battle, you will have an absolute lightning bruiser of a character, and that can be very, very nice to have. Is this something that you want on every single character? No, definitely not. But there's very few ways to boost speed in the game in general, things like Ramza's Tailwind or the haste spell from Time Mages, and there's a reason for that. Anything that lets you go faster, lets you manipulate the combat timeline, is a huge boon, and making it easier to do on characters that don't normally have access to that type of speed boost, again, like your knights, for example, is a great option. That will make them absolute terrors. Combined with the fact that you can get Speed Surge quite early compared to some of the other abilities that we've talked to, since you unlock Archer extremely quickly in the early game, it's actually not unreasonable to try and get this ability on a lot of people early on. If you're not sure what to put on a couple of your frontline melee fighters or characters that you just expect to get targeted a lot, Speed Surge will definitely serve you well. It is a more offense-oriented type of option, so you're going to want some support for those characters, but still, you really can't go wrong with it. Speaking of early abilities, now we have to talk about Auto Potion as demonstrated here by Moogle Mage. Auto Potion comes from the Chemist and is absolutely, bar none, the single most powerful reaction ability that you'll have in the early game. It costs 400 JP to learn, and upon receiving damage, uses a potion from the inventory to restore one's own HP, prioritizes the use of potions of lower potency, and again, the trigger percentage for this is exactly what your Brave is. So Moogle Mage would have a 67% chance to trigger Auto Potion every time he takes damage for any reason. Extremely powerful ability. Basically what this means, once you have high enough Brave, is you're just taking a certain flat amount of damage off of every hit, so long as you survive that hit. And what's cool is this can actually scale into the late game with you. At first, you'll be using regular potions, heal 30 HP when you get slapped for 50 damage, cool, you basically only took 20 damage. Get hit for actually less than 30 HP, congratulations, you just got a free heal courtesy of the enemy. And because, as it says, it prioritizes the lowest level of potion that you have in your inventory, eventually, you can just ditch all your potions entirely and have just high potions. Now you're healing for 70 every time you get hit by an attack. Get further in the game, now you're just using X potions on everyone, cool, ditch all the high potions and regular potions, and now you're healing for 150 every time you take damage. And that is a massive amount of damage reduction. Auto Potion is one of those set it and forget it abilities that almost feels like it's too powerful once you know how to manipulate the potions in your inventory to maximize it. Because you can get it so early, it's a very reliable option to put on literally every character that you have and just kind of be like, all right, cool, everyone just essentially has a bunch of free built-in temporary HP. Let's go, send them into battle. If you don't want to think any more about it, this is definitely a very strong general option. There is better, more specialized stuff, but you cannot go wrong with Auto Potion. No way, no how. We're down to our last two here, and I actually was originally only going to have one of these, but they really both are very good, more niche case abilities, so I figured we'd include both of them. First off, Reflexes, as demonstrated by our ninja Tox. Reflexes does come from the ninja ability. It costs 400 JP, and it says upon receiving an attack, greatly increases physical and magical parry and evasion rates, ineffective against certain attacks. So basically what this means is by equipping Reflexes, all of the evasion stats that you already have get improved. So if we look at our stats here, we have 30% physical evasion and 0% magical evasion, which stems from where our different class dodge rates and equipment dodge rates come from, right? We also have weapon parry, potentially cloak evasion. Reflexes gives a boost to these stats. So if you're trying to go for a more generally dodgy type of character, like say you've got a shield and you've got some sort of a cloak equipped on a character, and then you put Reflexes on them, they're going to be generally quite dodgy, especially if you have them in a job that is better at dodging in the first place. Especially if you're getting attacked from the front or the sides, this can turn almost any character into a frustratingly difficult to hit target, and that can actually do a lot for you, as oftentimes it's only one good evade that you need to survive what would otherwise have been a fatal turn. It's not something that you want necessarily on everyone, and it benefits heavily from tailoring your gear towards it, but each new boost that you give to your evade rates will make Reflexes even better. It's a very fun option. I highly recommend playing around with it, especially in this new version of the game where the description makes it a lot more clear what it's actually doing. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do here, and you will be seeing it in our campaign near the end game for some of our characters' builds. Finally, our other slightly more niche option is Dragonheart, as demonstrated here by Yun Yun. So Dragonheart is a very fun ability. Upon receiving a physical attack, grants re-raise to the unit. You might ask yourself, Tom, isn't re-raise just when I go down, I just get back up? And the answer is yes. Yes, it is. And once again, the percentage that you're looking at is based on your brave here. The reason I have Dragonheart as a more niche option is because it's an ability that kind of is planning for failure. Right? There's a lot of discussion of abilities like this in video games, in card games like Magic the Gathering, hell, even in tabletop wargaming stuff like Warhammer. You don't really want to be in a position where you're planning to lose or where you're planning to be on the back foot. If you can, you want to put more resources into make your odds of winning even better than they already were. However, in games like Final Fantasy Tactics, it never hurts to have a little bit of a backup option in your back pocket, and that's what Dragonheart is. Because at the end of the day, if you know that you're going to have a heavy frontline character like a Dragoon that wears heavy armor, wades into the thick of things, tries to parry attacks with a shield while shanking stuff with a spear, same thing for knights, etc., then you know that you're going to be getting hit. And if you can plan for the fact that you're going to be getting hit, that is something that's going to be happening, and put your resources into other members of your team who need a little bit more support. If you can count on the fact that your frontline fighter will get down, but will also be able to get themselves up in the process, that is a pretty significant boon, and it makes them a little bit of a fire and forget style of character. So long as they don't get absolutely overwhelmed with raw damage from the jump and they have time to activate Dragonheart, which, so long as they're not completely underleveled and have good gear, you should be able to generally expect for that to happen outside of certain boss fights, then Dragonheart can actually be a very powerful option for you. It's not for every character necessarily, but as far as general use is concerned, frontliners would be happy to have this. Now, where Dragonheart can get fun, however, is if you take a little bit of time at the start of a battle, have Dragonheart equipped on all of your guys, and then just throw stones at everybody. You just line up in a little bit of a friendship circle and then have everyone beam the dude to their right with a stone to the temple. Now you've taken a little bit of damage, and so long as you have sufficient brave scores, everyone on your team suddenly has re-raise, and you can just basically be off to the races. And again, so long as you don't get mass nuked multiple times in a row, you should be able to keep raising your guys, which can be a very powerful and fun strategy to go for. You definitely have to build around it, and it takes away other options from you, but I gotta say, it is pretty fun to see at the same time. And that, my friends, is my 6 most highly recommended reaction abilities for Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. Does that mean that other reaction abilities are not good? No. Does it mean that you can't have very good success with other reaction abilities? No. It just means that these are more generally applicable abilities that I would highly recommend everyone at least consider for many, if not all, job roles in their army. There's always going to be a use case for some specific scenario where maybe having critical recover HP will be the best possible thing you can do for a particular character. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about what is just the most useful overall for as many potential characters and jobs, and I think this set of 6 really covers all of your options. Of course, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If you have a particular reaction ability that you think fits that criteria, not just, I think it's really powerful and it's fun. Like, fine, you can tell us about that. But really, what I want to know is if you think that there are other reaction abilities that are absolute must-haves for anyone building any character. There are some really powerful things out there, such as Fury to get your physical attack up when you get hit, but that requires you getting all the way to Dancer. It's expensive, so while it is very useful, it's not as accessible as a lot of these other abilities are. Compare that to Auto Potion, which you can basically get in the first 30 minutes of the game with barely any focused grinding, and you can kind of see where the difference lies. But give me your thoughts, tell me what you think about all the different reaction abilities that are in the game, and as always, do continue letting me know what types of topics and videos you would like to see from me as well, so I can keep kind of drawing from what the community wants me to cover, not just what I think should be covered. Until the next one of those videos, or the next stream though, of course, thank you all so much for watching. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.